back to Drawn to Darkness, a sometimes weekly, sometimes bi-weekly podcast where we discuss our favorite horror and true crime. If you know who the killer is in the first Friday the 13th, we're here for you. My name is Annie, and I'll be introducing Caroline to my favorite horror movies, podcasts, TV shows, and books.
And my name is Caroline, and I'll be doing the same for Annie from the true crime side of things.
So, Caroline, I have a question. It's something I've been wondering for a long time. Do you like scary movies?
I like this scary movie.
Okay. Well, this scary movie that we're going to be discussing today is the infamous, the notorious, the legendary Scream, the first one.
Yes. Can I do a quick dedication, actually? I wanted to
Sure.
dedicate this episode to my essentially sister from across the street growing up, Taryn, who we watched this movie 8 million times together. And it was hard to take notes on this and not just write down every single line.
Yeah, I think I did a lot of writing down every single line as well. Before we get too far into Scream, spoiler and trigger warning, there is stabbing, there's blood, there's guts spilling out. It's a slasher. And as usual, we will be spoiling this 20-year-old movie? No, 30.
No, 30.
Nearly 30-year-old movie. God, we're old. Go watch or rewatch it. It's a blast. Here we go. Wes Craven's Scream, a mix of comedy, parody, and slasher, starts with our main character, Casey, played by Drew Barrymore, making popcorn to watch a scary movie when she receives an ominous phone call. At first, she thinks it's a wrong number. The caller chats about horror movies, and we learn her favorite is Halloween. But the conversation turns sinister when he says he wants to know who he's looking at. He quizzes her on horror trivia, and when she mistakenly says Jason is the killer in Friday the 13th, it's actually his mother, Mrs. Voorhees. The masked killer, who we now know as Ghostface, murders her boyfriend and then stalks and kills Casey gruesomely. Her parents return moments too late to find her hanging from a tree. Shock horror, the most famous actress in the movie, is dispatched within the first 12 minutes. We then meet our true final girl, Sydney Prescott, still deeply traumatized by her mother's murder the previous year. Her boyfriend, Billy Loomis, pressures her to be intimate, but she's not ready. Sydney's father leaves for the weekend, conveniently on the anniversary of his wife's death. We meet reporter Gail Weathers, who believes Sydney has accused the wrong man. We also meet Deputy Dewey, his sister Tatum, and her boyfriend Stu. After Casey's murder, school is canceled, and the students start dressing as Ghostface, blurring the line between prank and threat. Sydney soon receives calls from the same killer, only for Billy, her boyfriend, to climb through her window and drop a cell phone, leading Sydney and the police to suspect he is the caller. But there are no suspicious calls on his phone, so he's released. Ignoring all logic, the teens throw a party where Ghostface picks off guests, including Tatum in the infamous garage door scene. While watching the classic horror film Halloween, horror buff Randy explains the rules of surviving scary movies. Sydney, although still unsure about Billy, breaks rule number 1 and sleeps with him, moments before Ghostface kills him. Billy was innocent all along. Or is he? After chasing and attacking Sydney, the final reveal comes out. Billy and Stu are both Ghostface, seeking revenge because Sydney's mother had an affair with Billy's father. Stu's just along for the ride, peer pressure. They stab each other to pretend they're innocent victims left for dead and to frame Sydney's dad, but with Gail Weathers' help, Sydney outsmarts them, dons the Ghostface mask herself, and survives for the sequel. So, what adjective would you use to describe this?
I would say near perfection.
Perfection, okay.
Pretty damn close.
So I'm guessing you're not going to have much criticism?
I have some, but it's all in good fun. It's all within the realm of plausible deniability for the sake of the experience.
Yeah, it's so fun. I have been so excited to rewatch this and discuss it for you. For me, fun, nostalgic, and obviously self-aware. So many horror references, so many references to storytelling within storytelling. Like when Randy says, if it gets too complicated, you lose your target audience. When Billy pops up for the final scare as they're discussing how killers always pop up for a final scare. So it's on the nose, but it's so fun. It's delightful. Can you tell me about your Scream journey? Like, do you remember the first time you watched it or how you felt about it back in your teenage years?
I can't remember the first time I watched it. I do remember being like, oh, 2 people. That being something that really blew my mind. It never occurred to me, like that riddle about, oh, the doctor is his mother. Like, oh, a woman.
Yeah.
Those types of things that when you're younger, you're like, oh, right. But I had it on VHS. My initials growing up back in the day, children, we used to put our initials on our backpacks through LL Bean if we were lucky.
Not mine. My parents would never pay for that.
I did have an LL Bean backpack with my initials on it, which were CID, Sid. So everyone called me Sid. And then my friend Taryn, who I watched it with, Taryn, Tatum, not very far apart. So we really enjoyed watching it obsessively and constantly. and quoting it all the time.
You identified with the characters in Scream the way I identified with Sandra Bullock as Annie in Speed because we have the same name.
Yeah, there were not a lot of like characters named Caroline. And the first time in my life that somebody was used Caroline, I think it was that Outcast song Roses. So it wasn't a positive thing.
Oh, yeah. I don't remember like the first time I watched it. I just remember really having Ghostface on my mind. I remember I spent some time on this beach with a friend. She lived in this small beach town the summer after this came out. And it was the summer I turned pretty, like bonfires on the beach, kissing boys, biking around, getting sunburned. And one night I lost her at this party and I had to bike back by myself to her house. And yes, small town, close to midnight, streets are empty. And I remember just being like, Ghostface is going to come around the corner anytime. Like, he's out there and I'm alone in the dark. And it was just so in my head. So that would have been, I guess, when I was like 15. And anyway, I've just loved it since then. A few years ago, my son, when he was like 8 years old, got dressed up as Ghostface for Halloween. He chose that mask. And he spent so much time just like hanging around in the house in that costume, like a little creep. Like, he perfected the slow, creepy head tilt and would just like menace me. You know?
So good.
It's funny how that head tilt thing is like so cute if a dog does it, but so menacing if a human does it.
Well, especially like when they're silent, when they silently tilt their head
Why are they studying you?
and the slow nod and stuff like that. And I love Matthew Lillard, like just at the end I was like, I'm writing every single line that he says down. Every single line. He is so perfect in his delivery of everything. When you said peer pressure, I almost immediately was like, I'm far too sensitive. Like he's so good.
He's a scene stealer for sure. I honestly think he's my MVP of the movie.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about why Scream's important beyond just being a fun slasher. It revitalized the genre. I think it was a gateway drug to horror for a lot of people, like myself included. A lot of millennials and Gen X, this would have been our first real exposure to it. I do remember lurking in the horror aisle of my local Blockbuster, like studying the backs of VHSs long before this came out. So my darkness was there. It didn't make me into horror lover, but it made me a more creative horror lover.
I do think it mainstreamed it because I was not a horror lover. Like you were just saying, there was all of this laughable aspect to these slasher movies where nobody took them seriously. And like Randy says, everything is super predictable. And all these like B and C list people. I mean, Henry Winkler is in this and he's not even credited. And Drew Barrymore dying in that first scene, nobody saw that coming.
Fantastic. Fun facts. Kevin Williamson is the scriptwriter. He also wrote a bunch of the Scream sequels. I Know What You Did Last Summer, The Faculty. And do you know what else he wrote? Something that's important to you?
Is it related to 90210 or Dawson's Creek?
Dawson's Creek! Yep. So what
go.
a huge contribution this man has made to our lives.
The other thing actually is the Scream voice is another actor that nobody got to meet, right? To help with the whole scariness and suspense factor.
Another fun fact is they found that mask scouting for locations. Would the movie have hit the same way with a different mask? Hard to know, but because it's become so iconic.
Are you going to talk about scouting locations a little bit more specifically? Because there's definitely fun facts there.
I don't think I know. So why don't you tell me?
Really? Okay,
Yeah.
so this is one of my favorite fun facts about this movie. At the very end, credits, you will see a credit that says, "No thanks whatsoever to the Santa Rosa City School District Governing Board," because Wes Craven is petty AF, and I am down for that. So yeah, they put a lot of red tape in place, which they tried to accommodate, and then at the last minute just was like, no, you can't film here, and they had to like rewrite a bunch of stuff and find a new location and all this. I can't think of another movie that says no thanks whatsoever to
In the credits?
calls out. Yeah.
So what other movies have petty digs in the
Yeah.
credits? There's probably a few out there. You know what's a funny coincidence? Rose McGowan's shirt, the 10 shirt, because Johnny Depp wears almost exactly the same thing in Nightmare on Elm Street. But apparently it's a coincidence. I found this article about her, and she says that the wardrobe designer tried to put her in like overalls and Keds, saying they're very now. And Rose responded with, they're very never, and walked out of the room and went shopping herself and came across that t-shirt.
That's amazing.
So she like chose a lot of her own outfits. Did you know that it was originally titled Scary Movie?
I think I did know that.
But the Weinstein brothers didn't like it, so they changed it to Scream.
One of the bummers about this is the Weinstein involvement, which we've discussed at length.
Episode 14.
Before watching this, I was watching The Craft. just to get myself in the mood for Scream. Since we had that conversation and reconsumed Catch and Kill, whenever I see actresses from the 90s that I'm like, whatever happened to them, I wonder if he's a part of it. Like, what's her face? Nancy from The Craft. Oh, Fairuza Balk. She plays
Okay.
Nancy. I don't know if I'm saying her name right. She's also in Almost Famous. She's one of those girls. Deflower. Anyway,
And she's just gone.
I can't think of her in anything else. And she's so good. She's incredible in The Craft.
And I guess that's the thing with acting. It's like some people just go nowhere for whatever reason. But then
Right.
if they've been in a Weinstein production and they've had an encounter with him, you wonder. Anyway, that's not what this one's about. But let's talk about all the references. This is a very self-aware movie, like the Sixth Sense, which I still can't say, with characters discussing story within the story. Last week in our Rosemary's Baby episode, you mentioned not having encountered a lot of movies that reference other media so much.
Yeah.
Well, Scream is like, hey, Rosemary's Baby, hold my beer.
Yeah.
It is an ode to horror. Did you have any favorite references?
The first thing I thought of is when he's like, your mother was no Sharon Stone.
Well, yeah, not all of them are necessarily horror references. Sydney says, with my luck, I'd get Tori Spelling. Just a little dig at Tori.
Which then she does play her in the movie, Meta
So
in the
fun.
later Screams.
Yeah, so meta.
Yeah.
Who says, oh, really, Alicia, as if? Is it somebody?
Alicia, yeah.
Yeah, Alicia. They bring up the Richard Gere gerbil story.
Oh, yeah.
So there was a lot of other contemporary references besides the horror thing. Is that true?
I just don't agree with the whole, like, you can only hear that story so many times before you start believing there has to be truth to it. Yes, you can. People make up a lot of baloney.
I guess she is referencing the idea that a lie can get around the world before the truth gets its shoes on, that quote.
But she is trying to say her mom did get around. She's not saying it's a lie that her mom had an affair with Cotton or whatever.
Well, obviously, Halloween is the main reference here. They watched it at the party. Billy's last name is Loomis, after Dr. Loomis. Ghostface lurks in the background, just like Michael Myers, and both start with the murder of a teen whose parents come home just a little bit too late. Wes Craven, the director, makes a cameo, a Hitchcockian cameo as a school janitor wearing the iconic Freddy Krueger sweater. Linda Blair shows up as a reporter. Billy says, we all go a little mad sometimes, which is a line from Psycho. Randy mentions Candyman, which still horrifies me to this day because my friend's older brother put it on at a sleepover when I was very young, scarred me for life. Recently, my son, who's not seen Candyman, we were at a campsite that had Candyman written on the bathroom mirror. And my son was like, what is that about? And I told him about the legend. And he was like, oh, I'm going to say it. And I was legitimately like, no, like, don't say it. Please don't say it. Don't summon Candyman.
Randy mentions prom night.
Yep. Tatum says, I spit on your garage. Reference to a spit on your grave. Randy calls Billy Leatherface. Another Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think, is it Billy who mentions Silence of the Lambs? And Sid says, but this is life. This isn't a movie.
Right.
Which is funny. Sydney climbs out onto the roof is kind of reminiscent of The Shining because Wendy Torrance tries to get out through a window onto the roof. As you said in the past, Billy references Carrie when he tells Sydney his fake blood is corn syrup. And also in Carrie, the bad guy is Billy. There's others too. Like, there's so many. Did I miss any that you think are important?
She says some Wes Carpenter flick.
Yes, I thought that was so interesting because combining, Wes Craven with John Carpenter, it's weird because they actually show the movie Halloween, right, which is a John Carpenter movie. So who directed Halloween? Is Wes Craven taking credit? Or is this like a parallel universe thing? Because they exist in a world where our horror movies exist, but then they change it around just a little bit, right? Which kind of reminds me of zombie movies. So many zombie movies where they don't say the word zombie. Have you noticed that?
I mean, you have mentioned you're going to get me to respect zombie movies.
Train to Busan coming up. But yeah, they're always like walkers, biters, the infected. And I want to see a scene in a zombie movie where someone ominously states something like, oh, we call them shamblers. And another character's like, wait, have you not seen a zombie movie? They're zombies. Come on, like, look at that. What else? And, Billy says it's all one big great movie. And I need to throw my Macbeth reference in here. I think that recalls Macbeth's soliloquy, life is but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. So I thought that kind of nihilistic attitude that nothing matters, it's just a movie, we're all just playing our part, aligns with Billy's views on life and his motivations for his actions.
So if you're drinking every time Annie mentions Macbeth, go ahead.
I think I have done it every episode. I'm
Almost every
teaching it right
episode,
now,
yeah.
so it's just like on my mind. My students are preparing for their big Macbeth exam, so I think about that and horror, I guess. So let's talk about setting. Woodsboro, this town, these houses, the views, the land these people have. My God, so gorgeous.
This was another reason I related to this movie, because I did grow up in a very rural town that had 2-acre zoning. And a lot of people had houses like this. And the only thing there is to do is have parties at whoever's house the parents aren't home.
Your house abuts a forest, right?
Yeah, the nature preserve was behind my house. Yeah.
I lived on a campus because my parents were boarding school teachers. So, like, we had a lot of woods around us as well. It reminds me of this one house I used to babysit at that was just, like, so far from everything. And I was always so uneasy there because it just reminded me of Casey's house. They paid well, though.
We might talk about this in survival, but I did, of course, look up how long it takes the police department to respond to a 911 call in this town where Casey's house actually is. So I looked up the address of the house that Drew Barrymore that scene is at. And the response time is 6 minutes, 57 seconds. So there was absolutely time for the police to get there.
So don't ask a barber if you need a haircut. Don't ask a serial killer if you should call the police.
Right.
Call the
Yes.
police.
The other thing is, and I was not rich in my rich town, I even had an alarm system that would automatically call the fire department or police department. That popcorn is on fire on the stove. The alarms are not going off, but the parents walk in. I looked it up. 3 minutes and 31 seconds in, the popcorn's done. At 9 minutes and 5 seconds, there is flames in the kitchen. And then at 11 minutes, 54 seconds is when the alarm starts going off. That's way too long. And the alarm absolutely would have gone off.
So survival, make sure you change your smoke alarm batteries.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a part of me that would love to live in rural towns. Like every time we go camping and we pass through some country town, I'm like, I want to be on the outskirts of someplace like this. I don't really care about being in the city, and I don't take advantage of what cities have to offer. I like staying home and doing puzzles and watching movies and walking in the woods. But then I think about the people who are actually too far and my anxieties about being murdered by a serial killer. And I think maybe I'm better to be surrounded by people in the suburbs.
Yeah, we live in town very much on purpose, and I've always felt safer with lots of people around. And the police department is like a block from our house, which my son last night was like, I'm having one of those nights where I'm worried someone's going to break in. And I'm like, we have 2 huge dogs. The police department's a block away. We are not in the biggest house in the area. Like, you don't need to worry about it. And then I reminded him also that his Google speaker can call 911. So he calmed down.
Do you have a favorite Scream house? I like Tatum's house with its beautiful front porch.
Yes, I like the front porch. I really like Sydney's house. And actually, I think about Sydney's house all the time because I have 2 doorknobs that do that in my house currently.
Oh, like in her bedroom.
Yeah, the door way into the kitchen and the pantry door, hook knobs all the time. And I probably think about this movie, every couple days because I get
Every time you open that door.
every time I get stuck because someone's like literally sitting on the floor of the pantry eating all the snacks.
I did think even though the houses are gorgeous, the decor was ugly, like ugly 90s decorating. And a lot of the interiors of these houses reminded me strangely of the footage of JonBenet Ramsey's house because they were supposed to be so loaded and such a privileged, wealthy family. And then I look at the inside of their house, I'm like, this place looks like crap.
Well, it's like the decor makes it dark, even though it's very bright.
Yeah.
Casey's house actually is great. Drew Barrymore's house is.
Casey's house is beautiful.
All those windows and everything like that. A nice big kitchen with the gas stove.
And those big French doors, which are lovely unless somebody's stalking you from outside in the dark. Well, in terms of time, as we said, very 90s, turn of the millennium. Do you remember how in the 90s, people in TV and movies would always be like, it's the 90s?
Yes.
I found a supercut of that, like all different characters from 90s TV shows. Yeah, I'll share it at some point.
I love that part of Bridesmaids when Kristen Wiig is like, it's the 90s. It's equal rights.
That's great. Randy says, it's the millennium. Motives are incidental. Can I just say the 90s, late 90s were a great time to be in high school. We were pretty lucky.
Oh my God. There was an episode of The Dollop where I think Dave Anthony is like, we peaked as a species in the 90s.
Yeah. I know life wasn't perfect, right? Like depending on what demographic you were in, like things were not necessarily great, right? But in terms of not having the phones yet and the freedom we had, there was a lot of great stuff.
And I love Drew's 90s lipstick. Oh my gosh. 90s lipstick. I really, really love all that. I used to put on eyeliner as lip liner and then just like
I'm
a
sure that looked
tan.
great.
Oh my God. It was the
Yeah.
best.
Another aspect of the 90s setting is the focus on the oddity of having a cell phone, which feels like so dated. When Skeet drops his cell phone, everyone, is appalled that merely owning a phone is sus.
I mean, I thought about that because I was like, is it that bizarre? Because they're wealthy kids. And I had a cell phone in high school for my car because when you live in the middle of nowhere, if you get in a car accident, and that's all it was for. It was for calling 911.
Was it like big and clunky?
Yeah, but people knew I had it. I think that's the thing is that it drops out of his pocket. Why doesn't his girlfriend know he has a cell phone?
He's got a secret cell phone. Now she would assume cheating.
Right.
The other thing I think we should comment on is the score. Not so much the score. Like, I think the score is fine, but the Nick Cave song, its inclusion in this made Red Right Hand really iconic and so associated with Scream. A must for any horror mixtape. I was thinking about other like horror songs that you'd want for a horror movie mixtape. You definitely need Painted Black and that song from Silence of the Lambs. That Buffalo Bill dances too.
Oh my gosh. I love whenever there's memes about like me in the hole when that jam comes on.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, the other 90s thing I noticed is behind Drew's back because she's about to watch a movie. The giant clunky TV that is sitting on the floor is set to Channel 3.
Okay, nice. And doesn't she have an Indigo Girls poster? Somebody has an Indigo Girls poster.
Oh, yes. I think it's Sydney has the Indigo Girls.
Yeah.
So Casey's TV is on Channel 3. Sydney has the Indigo Girls poster.
Actually, I read in that Rose McGowan article that originally the Indigo Girls poster was in her bedroom. And she was like, Tatum wouldn't listen to them.
I agree.
They're for Sydney, for sure. Well, speaking of these characters, let's talk about them. First of all, not one single person, I think, looks like they're in high school. Typical 90s casting near 30-year-olds for high school kids.
Right.
Maybe a little bit earlier, but the most egregious is probably Stockard Channing as Rizzo. She was like mid-30s.
Well, and Andy in Dawson's, like, there's all these extreme efforts to make her look younger with, like, braids and overalls, and she just looks creepy.
Stacey Dash as Dion in Clueless. She was really old as well. Obviously, Andrea.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about Sydney, one of the most iconic final girls of all time. Were you a Party of Five fan?
No.
I'm pretty sure it was on at the same time as 90210, and that's probably why.
I was just about to say, unless I'm misremembering, it was on the same time as 90210, and
You had to
obviously I
choose.
had loyalties there.
Yeah. Well, my
So,
parents
no.
wouldn't let me watch 90210, so we were a Party of Five family. I had to watch 90210 later. Perhaps growing up as a Party of Five fan instead of 90210 is sacrilegious to be a wife to my husband and friend to you. But
I just feel pity.
yeah. Well, it's not my fault. My parents wouldn't let me. Yeah.
I know, which sucked. I had the Barbies even. I was watching it way young.
Yeah. So I feel like I had pictures of Nev Campbell on my wall because I had one of those like slanted roofs in my childhood bedroom, and I'd like tear out pictures of celebrities I liked and put them up there. I know I had Gwyneth and Brad up there, and I know I had a bunch of like Milk Mustache and Absolute Vodka posters.
Oh my God.
And I'm pretty sure Nev Campbell was up there too. Well, Sydney, feminist icon in horror because she calls out the tropes and sexism that you see in movies like Halloween and flips the script on them. Though I do think it's funny that she makes fun of dumb horror victims for running up the stairs when you should be going out the front door and then immediately does the same thing. But the chain was locked. Yeah, I guess she had no choice. Sydney's also more complex because we get her background trauma. She's flawed. She's not just fighting Ghostface, but her inner demons and doubts. And she made a mistake and put Cotton Weary in jail. And we're seeing that play out. So she's angry, she's sad, she's trying to be strong, she's plagued by doubt. So that just makes her more than the final girls we've perhaps seen in the past who don't get that background.
Yeah, she definitely has complexity. And I think too, like this time watching was the first time that I saw how much she was being gaslit by Billy and how much he was manipulating. Because I was also like super prude. I did not have sex in high school. I remember also relating to her by being like, oh, I'm the prude girl. And it's my poor boyfriend has to put up with me because I'm not ready for sex and I should be grateful that he's with me.
I think there was a lot of that attitude growing up in the 90s. So it wasn't perfect. Like we grew up reading like Cosmo and Marie Claire, right? Like all those magazines that had all this sex positivity and quizzes, but also it did put pressure on, I think, women to be sexually available. But then we would also be punished if we were having sex. So I think this kind of explores that slut shaming versus sex positivity kind of thing. But Sydney manages to break the rules by having sex, claim her sexuality, but not get punished. Whereas the characters who have sex in Halloween and other movies like this get taken out.
Did you ever know anyone or have anyone climb into a bedroom, like a boyfriend climb into a bedroom window?
No.
I didn't have a house where that was possible.
No, by the time I had boyfriends, we were in a second-story house. Yeah, would have been very hard.
I did have a friend who lived in a gorgeous house and had a little, like, Juliet balcony, and her boyfriend climbed up it, and she lost her virginity that way. Pretty epic movie-wise.
Yeah, that's a great story. She must have won Never Have I Ever every time she did.
Yeah.
I guess when we think of Sydney and that Madonna whore complex that so many female characters are held up to, she's a rare character that's neither and both. She can kind of walk that line.
I was sort of trying to think about this interesting aspect of it. There's these efforts in the beginning to definitely age her down or make her look more innocent. Like when he climbs into her bedroom and she's typing on her computer, which I always love when actors type. But she's wearing the ugliest nightgown. I would have just been in a big slouchy t-shirt.
It's almost Victorian. Right?
Yeah.
Very prissy.
And he's like, "What, are you sleeping?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'm sleeping." It's like, "No, the lights are on and you're typing." Why? Anyway. And then she also got off the school bus, which I thought was interesting because if she's popular, which clearly she is, they hang out on the fountain. That's the signature sign in the 90s that you're part of the popular crowd. Eat lunch on the fountain at your school. Why was she taking the bus home? Nobody drove her home.
Surely somebody could drive her.
Yeah.
Even if she doesn't have a car. Weird.
I was not in the popular crew and I got rides home. I didn't take the bus,
You got dried home?
Drives. I got drives. Yeah, that was the gruel. I started to say great and said cool, whatever.
Yeah, I think if you want to learn more about this by people who know more than we do, there's this great podcast that I listen to called The Faculty of Horror. One of the women writes for Rue Morgue, and they discuss this in far more depth, like literary analysis, very scholarly. I thought it was very interesting, so check them out. Fewer 90210 references, more scholarly articles.
I won't be checking it out then.
Now, one thing I think was important in Sydney's characterization, Wes Craven says that he was inspired by his daughter because she commented while watching Swamp Thing, "Dad, girls don't always fall down." And he said, "This made me realize I had fallen into the old horror cliche of the girl running from the villain and tripping on a rock or some other debris. I didn't really care for that, so it got me thinking about taking it in the other direction."
That reminds me, there's a great clip of Reese Witherspoon. She's at some sort of awards show, and she's talking about how women are written, and she's like, "You always know a man wrote it," when the woman is like, "What do we do?" Turns to a man, is like, "What do we do now?" Have you ever heard a woman say that in a crisis situation?
No. I'm the one who's like, "Okay, here's what we need to do."
Yeah. Okay, just give me a second. Okay, here's what we do.
Yep. All right, let's talk Billy. Are you going to say, must we?
Yeah. No, we must, because I got a lot of shit to say
Okay.
about Billy.
Billy's a jerk. He's a psychopath too, but
He's such a jerk. When he says it's been a year, you need to get over it, I was appalled. I remember feeling like that seems fast in high school, but now that I've actually had parents die, all of my parents have passed, and I can't imagine someone being like, "It's been a year. Don't you think you should move on?" Are you kidding me? Especially they all passed as older people when I was an adult, not horrifically murdered when I was a
only
teenager.
a year before. He's absolutely wrong. Obviously, the worst thing he does is fake a year-long relationship with her to ultimately get her to have sex and then murder her. That's pretty bad. But he also kind of just sucks in that 90s broody boyfriend way that kind of, I don't know, conditioned us to find that attractive. And that's wrong. We should be dating Randy.
Yeah, I think it started with Ethan Hawke in Reality Bites.
Reality Bites. Yeah, absolutely. Date the fun guy, right?
Yeah.
Having said that, Skeet as Billy in his crisp white t-shirt with his hair falling over his eyes, just so, giving Johnny Depp sexual awakening for sure.
I mean,
part of that.
He's giving Johnny Depp, which was never my type. Johnny Depp is too pretty. It's too clean. Everything's too clean. I like a little more gruff.
We mentioned people being too old. Skeet was 25, 26 and looks it. I've mentioned before I'm a high school teacher. Nobody looks like he looks in this movie.
Yeah, he looked very close in age to his dad.
Yeah. And gaslighting her for like a whole year. And then there's that moment after they have sex and he is like, what do I have to do to prove to you I'm not a killer? And then he gets stabbed by Ghostface. And at least the first time I saw this, I was like, oh, we did Billy wrong. Like, poor malign, falsely accused Billy. He was innocent the whole time. Nope.
I love when she says, fuck you. And he's like, oh, no, we played that game already. You lost.
Oh, that's so mean.
It is so mean. I have a question. So, do we think, and trigger warning, we're going to discuss sexual assault. Do you think that he assaulted her mother, or do you think that she just had slept with Cotton? Because definitely rape kits were around.
I thought that at first, that she was raped. But I think she probably just had sex with Cotton because Cotton was there and he left and he said he was drunk. So I reckon she had sex with Cotton and then was murdered and they assumed the evidence of sexual activity was rape.
Right.
It's obviously much worse if Billy and or Stu raped her, but I reckon they just murdered her.
Yeah.
Poor Sydney. Like, we discussed this in Rosemary's Baby, but the idea that can you really trust anyone? You'd think after dating someone for a year, you'd have a good read on their personality. And obviously, sociopaths can be very convincing and charming. Having said that, I mean, and this is kind of a criticism in terms of the plausibility of all this, which doesn't really matter for a movie like this. But if you think about what happened, we've got two teenage boys with developing brains that somehow have the self-control to plan these murders well over a year in advance. He was dating Sydney before the murder because he talks about how she's changed. Mm-hmm. And, putting in this time, pretending to be normal for a whole year.
That's a thing that happens in movies too and TV shows where I'm like, how did you know? Because there was a lot of scares, a lot of attacks. How did you know you'd end up here at this house party just after midnight on the anniversary? Because they would discover Principal Himbry hanging from the flagpole and everyone else would leave the house so you could reveal your...
But they make all that happen, right? Like they kill Himbry. It's the parties at Stu's house.
But do they know when he's going to get discovered, when the phone call is going to... like there's
Maybe they made the phone call.
Yeah,
is Billy in the room at the phone call? There's a phone call, but we don't hear who it is. So,
true.
Yeah.
Why did Tatum have to die?
I mean, do you need a reason to kill your girlfriend?
Oh. Right.
Randy says that, right?
There's always some bullshit reason to kill your girlfriend.
There's always some bullshit reason to kill your girlfriend.
Stu is who I would have dated, by the way.
I think I would have fallen for Stu, too. Yeah.
Yeah. He's so
I would have
funny when he's like, should I let the machine get it?
Yeah, he's great. He's great. I mean, just so many good lines. He's got this, like, Jim Carrey, like, rubber face, right? Like, great comedic relief. I love the way he says, I'll be right back. Like, he gets the best lines. I love when he's like, my parents are going to be so mad.
I love that. My mom and dad are going to be so mad. And when he says liver alone.
Yeah.
Liver. It was a joke.
He makes sure you know. And it's like at this point, Stu, like you're either dying from Billy stabbing you or you're going to jail. It doesn't matter what your parents think.
I know.
And I love that he's wearing that big red Playboy Mansion bathrobe or whatever he's wearing around his house.
So good. So good. Oh my gosh.
What do you think Stu's real motive is? Is he in love with Billy?
I don't know. And actually, I was going to ask you when he's saying, like, did they ever figure out why Hannibal Lecter liked to eat people? Like, nope. And they're talking about how motives are incidental or whatever. But then he says, how about this? Your slut mother was fucking my father. Stu looks shocked. Do you think Stu didn't know?
I don't know.
They cut to him.
Okay.
Because I remember thinking that in high school, being like, did Stu really not know why they were doing this whole time? Is he just like a poser and that's all his dimension?
And he's just in Billy's thrall, which ties into the potential that Billy was using that maybe Stu was closeted or bisexual or something. And
yeah, I mean, I think like one-dimensional posers is also a 90s trope in movies.
Yeah. Well, I also wonder, was Billy taking out Stu with those stab wounds? Billy's the true sociopath here, I think. And Stu is baggage at this point. He's a loose end that could talk. You can't trust that guy, right? So he seems a little too forceful. I love that the way Stu dies is by TV. He's watched too much TV, and TV is the thing that kills him, right? He's hoisted by his own petard for sure. Yeah, I think in terms of the motive things, like Billy says, it's a lot scarier when there's no motive, mentioning Norman Bates and Hannibal Lecter. And I agree. I find the idea of no motive scarier, even though the vast, vast, vast majority of murders would have a motive. It's people who know each other. But the psychopath who kills because they like it, that is stuck in our collective consciousness. And it's harder to comprehend and harder to avoid by, changing your behavior and I guess not pissing people off. So there's the famous quote from the movie The Strangers, where Liv Tyler and Scott Speedman, Ben from Felicity, are menaced by these masked intruders. And she's at the end like, why us? One of the bad guys goes, because you were home. And it's just so chilling. But yeah, I mean, Billy is an abandoned little boy who can't handle his parents' divorce, I guess.
He's a pansy-ass mama's boy.
Yeah. Stu is pure pressure. Yeah.
I'm far too sensitive.
So good. Speaking of things I like about Stu is Ghostface. All the times that Ghostface is darting around in the background. He's in the grocery store and like nobody sees him.
I know, I wrote that down too. Why is he like hanging out in the bushes in costume?
Yeah. He's like behind a tree and he's like, whoosh, like off to the side. And he seems to have these magical, mystical powers of appearance and disappearance, but equal parts klutz and ninja. So I have a theory that when he's disappearing mysteriously somewhere, that's when he's Billy. And when he's like being an absolute klutz and falling over, that's when he's Stu.
Another way to tell if you're not super short like me is I did, of course, look up the heights of these people. And Matthew Lillard is 6'4" and Skeet Ulrich apparently 6 feet, but I think
he
I
seems
don't know
small
about that.
Matt does seem tall. Matt Lillard seems tall.
Yeah,
but
I believe that Skeet's publicist said he's 6 feet tall, but I don't know if he
the way we hear about our president's height and weight, right?
Right, exactly.
He's so physically slapstick reactive, like in the way he reacts to Tatum throwing the bottles at him, and he's like slamming into doors and tripping over. Yeah, it's funny. I think what's interesting about this is I feel like this is the first time, and I don't know if there's been any other time besides maybe Scream, sequels, when there's multiple killers pretending to be the same identity, like sharing an identity. There's obviously been movies where killers are working together, but this is different. I think the two killers reveal makes certain plot points somewhat more plausible. Yeah. Like how he could get from one place to the other so quickly, or doing things that require actual physical strength, like hoisting Casey's body up a tree on a very tight deadline as her parents drive in the driveway. I just went camping and like I can't get our roof rack off and on the car by myself. Things like camping and elaborate corpse display are the kind of extracurricular activities where you need an extra set of hands. I do think they're very dumb that they don't restrain Sydney in some way at the end in the great reveal. Yeah. And that they stab each other and make themselves vulnerable before killing Sydney. They could be like, here's our plan. Now we're killing you and then do that.
Yeah. And this is, I guess, a criticism of all these things, like that he doesn't actually shoot Gale, that the people they leave for dead aren't dead. There's very easy ways to ensure people are dead. But
if they did, it wouldn't be a fun movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess these are teenage boys and they're not thinking everything through. I think most 17, 18-year-olds would have trouble planning a murder like this. I do think it's interesting that the Ghostface identity, like from the very first movie, can change depending on who wears the mask, right? And I want to quote Miles Morales, my favorite Spider-Man, who says anyone can wear the mask. And I think it's great that Sydney wears the mask. Even though I don't think it's a very smart decision. It's a good movie decision, a good cinematic flipping of the script. But I don't think I would put on that costume because I feel like you're going to get caught on something and your field of vision is compromised, right? And those kind of masks are very sweaty.
Yeah. One smart decision actually along those lines that I wrote down, at the end, Gale is not wearing her shoes. And I always hate, especially like those new Jurassic Park movies with Bryce Dallas Howard, and she's running from dinosaurs in heels.
Take them off.
Like pumps. I don't understand. Put your hair in a ponytail, get it out of your face, and take your shoes off. Especially because I loved those shoes, by the way, when she steps into the blood and everything. I'm like, oh, look at those chunky heels. I love those chunky heels. And then I noticed as soon as they were off her feet, and I was like, smart Gale,
Good girl, Gale. Yeah, I would question the decision to wear chunky high heels to a serial killer stakeout in any situation. But yeah, maybe she didn't think she was going to become the victim, I think.
Right.
Should we talk about Gale?
Sure.
I love Gale. She's so fun because she's villain and hero.
Right. Love to hate her.
Yeah. She's so mean to Kenny, her cameraman.
Oh my God. I wrote at the end, like, I hope she dedicates her breaking story to the memory of her cameraman. She's like, okay, I think it's going to go something like this. Like she just pushed him off her windshield, as she says. Get off my windshield.
If she does dedicate it to him, it would be in an effort to look good as opposed to out of real empathy.
So true.
I mean, he's just trying to go to work. He's body shamed. He's bullied. And then he gets murdered, right? He didn't sign up for any of that.
She made me want to be a brunette in this because her eyes, I have blue eyes, but blonde hair. And her eyes, especially with those streaky 90s highlights, it really pops that brunette. So well done with the hair.
You have a thing for dark hair and blue eyes, don't you?
I do.
When do you think Gale actually started to like Dewey?
Gosh, I feel like movie too. But I always really love when they fall on top of each other, which never happens in real life. But when they fall on top of each other and she's like, "Is that what you're looking for?" And he's like, "My whole life."
Whole life. It's so funny.
So Dewey.
I also love when he's like, I was 24 for a whole year.
Yeah.
It's a smooth line, Dewey.
He is so charming.
Yeah. Just back to Gail for a minute. You know, she's harassed a teenager going through trauma for the sake of a story for the past year, we can imagine. She's ruthless. She's ambitious. She crosses the line. Like, she infiltrates a teenage party and hides the biggest camera I've ever seen in direct eye line of the teenagers. Good thing they're wasted. But at the same time, Sydney's wrong. Gail is right. She is advocating for an innocent man, and Sydney needs to atone for that.
Maybe a slazzy tabloid journalist will win a Pulitzer.
Does she ever win a Pulitzer as it moves on? I don't think so.
No.
Well, should we talk a little bit more about Dewey? He's Patricia and Rosanna Arquette's brother, the actor, David Arquette, which ties in with our episode on Catch and Kill and our episode on The Act as well, with Patricia Arquette playing Dee Dee Blanchard.
Do we never discuss that he's in Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
I've never watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
The movie?
None. I've never.
Wow. I've never watched the show, but I had the movie because Luke Perry's in it. So
it's just one of those things I missed. Yeah. Again.
Maybe we should watch that. It is a horror movie.
Yeah, definitely.
It's very 90s.
Dewey is very incompetent. He is told to stay close to Sydney, like you had one job, and he's just following Gail around like a puppy because he's susceptible to flattery.
He like hands the beer back to the kid.
He just wants to be cool because if he's not cool, Tatum's going to bully him. Right? My favorite Dewey scene, besides I was 24 for a whole year, is when he's eating an ice cream cone, like really seriously. And like a vanilla ice cream cone is the most childish food, except for like mac and cheese or something, while his chief is like seriously smoking a cigarette. And it's just so funny. It made me laugh.
I like when he's getting yelled at by Tatum, when he's like, "When I wear this suit, you treat me like a man of law."
Why is he holding the mask to that door?
I don't I found this.
Like, he's talking behind him and he's holding it in front of him. Like, there's no plausible explanation for Dewey to hold the door to the keyhole. Doesn't make any sense.
No.
A little bit more about Tatum. I guess she is presented as the other half of that Madonna whore complex. Sydney's the virgin, Tatum is not. But again, both of them deviate from those boxes. And McGowan plays her as more than that. I found an article with her saying that she wanted to play her as more than a sarcastic throwaway bitch. She said, "Everything I did had to be cute, but not in a saccharine way. She has to be sassy, but not bitchy. Warm, but caustic." And I think she did that well.
So well. Her supportive friend vibe is amazing. This scene is one of the things we quoted over and over again. But the whole, "I'll send you a copy." Bam, bitch went down. Yeah, with the teddy bear and everything. So cute.
Yeah, awesome. And by the way, as somebody who is mistreated by the industry, which we talk about in Catch and Kill, she has really nice things to say about Wes Craven, like a good person.
That's nice.
And as we talked about before, her clothes are chef's kiss, very contempo casuals. She dresses the way I wanted to dress in high school, but like would never have been able to pull off. Do we want to go straight into garage door scene with Tatum?
Oh God, let's wrap up Tatum in the horrible way that she gets wrapped up. When she's getting the beers out of the garage, which how did nobody notice that the beers did not arrive? But
it's too many beers.
But the other thing is there's eggs in the egg thing. So there are eggs taken out of a carton and put into the individual egg holes of the fridge in the garage. Who does that?
That's a weird thing to do. I could see like if you have extra eggs, keeping them in the
carton
in it, but yeah, it's effort to take it out. Yeah. I reckon Stu's family has hired help, so maybe somebody's unpacking the groceries. I don't know.
And then they're individually bringing the eggs into the kitchen. It's like time for breakfast.
Maybe they do like egg and spoon rice every morning.
Yeah.
Tatum trying to carry those beers reminded me of Gus, the mouse from Cinderella. Do you know when Cinderella's fed the mice kernels and then Lucifer's stalking them and Gus is getting greedy and he's like trying to hold them with his chin?
Of course.
And he's just stacking kernels and it's like super tense, a really tense scene for a Disney cartoon. That was what I thought of when I saw Tatum carrying those beers.
I also thought of, I don't remember, other than Zima, I don't remember anything in a bottle beer-wise in a high school party. You were definitely drinking cans.
Yeah, I'd say same.
But a can isn't going to shatter when you throw it at someone's crotch, so I understand.
In that article I read about Rose McGowan, apparently it was actually freezing cold. They shot it like 20 times, and nobody told her about the nipples.
You know, Jennifer Aniston often mentions like people commenting on her nipples on Friends all the time, and she's just like, whatever, they're part of my body, I don't care, which good for her. I have always wore lined bras because I'm insecure about nipples showing, but good on them.
Yes. So I think Tatum was really going all right until she tried to go through the cat door or dog door or whatever. She's chucking beers. She's slamming him in the face with the freezer door. She does the duck and flip. You wouldn't get away with any of that with Michael Myers, right? He'd just keep on coming. But she's fighting. Another fun fact, she could fit through that door. They had to like pin her or nail her shirt in because she kept falling through.
Oh.
So when we debate, could Rose and Jack have both fit on the door? Like Tatum could have gotten through this dog door. I feel like that scene is a lot gorier than I remember, the way her mangled body's stuck there. And I feel like that has made me afraid of garages. That's stuck with me. It was probably the goriest thing I'd ever seen until like the Final Destination movies came out at that point in my life.
I never look. I always close my eyes.
Yeah.
Same with Casey. I have never actually seen her.
No, I watch it, but it's gory. It's awful. She says, Mom. She calls out for her mom in the last moment before her neck is broken.
I didn't notice that. Oh, that gave me the chills. We have discussed that before.
Yeah, in our Carrie episode, the idea that you want your mom when you're scared and suffering. And I thought that was really chilling. And ironic in a movie called Scream that one of the main characters who is cast as the disposable blonde, right? And to give her that moment of humanity of wanting her mom instead of her just being a screamer. And as I'm speaking, I'm kind of realizing parents are such a huge part of this. You know, Tatum crying out for her mom in her dying moments. Billy's doing this because of his parents. Sydney's traumatized by her mother's death. Stu's first thought when he's going to get caught is that his mom and dad will be mad at him, and Casey's parents find her.
One thing actually about Tatum's mom, I was looking at her and I was like, she's familiar. Where is she from? And she's Lorraine's mom in Back to the Future.
Okay. I would have not.
So Marty, I hope you like meatloaf.
Yeah. Oh, now I recognize her. Okay, I can picture her now. I just have to say, aside from the murderer picking everyone off, that party is like my ideal high school party. There's a group of fun people like watching TV.
I have a note. Love a 90s house party.
Yes. And, you know, I was just thinking when I saw that scene, I don't really watch horror movies with people anymore. You know, except for maybe my annual Jaws rewatch with my family. Like, generally, I'm kind of watching it by myself. Or if, you know, it's Friday the 13th or Halloween or my birthday, I'll be like, my husband, you must watch a horror movie with me. And I kind of miss that communal fun and joy and fear and reacting that those kids have together.
Yeah, I don't know if I've mentioned on this before, but we started a new tradition in my husband's family, which drink I'm mentioning my husband, that on the holidays we watch the Fast and Furious movies. It's such a fun, like communal watch where we're just like,
is that with your kids?
No. It's after the kids are in bed and the adults are drinking and we're all just hanging out and we're just watching cars jump between buildings, cars go into space, you know, all this ridiculous stuff. And we just love a good snark watch.
Snark watches are the best. I love it. One thing I had a question about, are those the same kids that got expelled hanging out at that party? Because why is Sydney hanging out with them? And why hasn't Stu noticed that Tatum didn't come back? Even if you don't notice her, you'd be like, where are the beers? Like,
yeah, I know why Stu hasn't mentioned, but somebody does ask as he's saying goodbye to people, because I also noticed people leaving in waves, which I thought it was very accurate about what it would be like to be a high school student when something like this is happening. Like some people have different curfews, parents care differently, some parents aren't paying attention, you know, these different waves of people leaving. But anyway, this one wave of people leaves and they're like, what happened to Tatum?
So somebody
and I'm like,
noticed.
yeah, somebody asks him and he's like, oh, she probably got mad at me and bailed. And I'm like, you're really lucky your garage doesn't face where everyone else's cars are parked.
Yeah.
Because I was like paying attention to the layout of the house, you know?
It would make sense for him to at least pretend he's concerned. You know, keep up the facade. In just that party scene. Right, the rules scene. It's such a classic moment. And the way they all cheer and boo. I love it.
And there's different ADR moments with the I'll be right back. Like with Courtney Cox when she leaves Kenny. Her mouth says, keep watching.
Oh, yeah. There's a couple little things where they messed right?
Yeah. But her ADR says, I'll be right back.
I love Randy. I love his unabashed weirdness. I was just talking about this with a few of my students. Like, yesterday about the importance of embracing your weirdness and whatever it is you're drawn to, letting yourself be enthusiastic, because I feel like a lot of teenagers hold back. And I love Randy, who's just like, I'm going to talk about this horror movie, and everyone else is leaving. I don't care. I'm going to still watch it. I love that.
Me too. And I also love when they're in the video store that he's been fired from twice, which I worked at Sam Goody in high school, so I really love.
I've always been jealous of that for you.
Yeah, is best. But yeah, when he's at the video rental store and he's like, "You're right, Billy. I'm the first to admit it. I would be the killer or whatever." And then Billy leaves and he's like, "You're telling me that's not a killer?"
Yeah, he's great. He plays it so well. Having said that, Randy does potentially represent a toxic force because there's these gatekeepers of horror. You know, the message that you're not enough of a horror fan if you don't know this obscure movie. So there is a lot of that. And a lot of those people are very critical of Scream.
You know, you just reminded me of, I was at Dunkin' Donuts once. I was in line with my oldest, who was wearing a Pink Floyd t-shirt. And the woman in front of us had a daughter wearing a Pink Floyd t-shirt.
Weird.
And this was like a few years ago. So he must have been, I don't know, 9. I pointed out like, oh, hey, look, matching t-shirts. And the mom turned around and said, do you know the names of any of their songs?
Mean.
Right? And I would be like, okay, high school guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Somebody probably did that to her. Hurt people, hurt people.
True.
One thing I don't get, why do both Tatum and Sydney assume it's Randy? I feel like that's so dumb because they both actually know a killer's out there. Casey was murdered. And it's like, oh, Randy, right?
Yeah. And what is his height?
I think he's little. I reckon he's little.
He's little. But I mean, a lot of times it's on the phone. But
yeah. Sydney walks out and to her front porch and pretends to pick her nose, knowing that the day before Casey and Steve were in fact murdered.
I know.
Is a bad decision. Speaking of murders, Principal Hembry. Should we talk about the Fonz?
Yes.
2 episodes in a row where we talk about the Fonz because we mentioned him in our Rosemary's Baby episode because there's a character called Dr. Saperstein.
Oh, right. I was like, when did we talk about the Fonz? But we talked about Henry Winkler.
Yeah, we talked about Henry Winkler.
Yeah.
I feel like this brought him back into the public consciousness. And I don't even really think I watched Happy Days, but I remember being really excited by this cameo.
Me too. I did watch Happy Days because Nick at Night had a thing in the summers where they had like a Very Brady Monday and a whatever Happy Days Tuesday or whatever. And I loved those blocks. Watching those, I was into Henry Winkler. I was very excited to see this. And you're right. I wrote down, what did Henry Winkler do before this? What was his age? So he was 57 when this was filmed. Right after this, he did Waterboy and all these other Adams.
Yeah, this brought him back. And he's great in Barry. I loved him in Barry. Have you seen that?
No. I've seen one episode of Barry.
Oh, you should watch Barry. It's great. Do you think he was right to expel those boys?
No. Suspend.
Yeah, I agree. A little harsh. I thought also his what he says to them is a little harsh.
Yeah, your entire generation disgusts me. Yeah, it's a bit harsh.
Fairness would be to rip your insides out and hang you from a tree so we can expose you for the heartless, desensitized little shits that you are.
Okay, boomer.
Yeah, it's a bit over the top. I'm sure a little professionalism here. But yeah, I agree. They definitely needed to be punished. I don't think suspending classes was a good idea. I feel like school would be a place where people are more likely to be safe. I don't know. I'm coming from an Australian perspective. But when they're not at school, they're out wandering around and partying.
So did you ever have anyone die when you were in high school who was a student?
Absolutely. And it was not like that. What does Stu say? It's like Christmas around here?
Yeah.
The way the kids are reacting. Like we had deaths by car accident growing up and it was very somber after, kids crying by lockers, speaking to guidance officers. So I guess that is speaking to, and I want to talk about this later in terms of the deeper horrors, the way murder is sensationalized. But yeah, I found that unrealistic. One thing that I found was kind of funny was why does he have so much clothes in his closet?
Yeah.
Like, is he living there? You know how like little kids think their teachers live at school and then they're shocked when they see you in the wild? Like, well, this is what happened to me. Is Principal Hembry actually living there? Like, he's got a lot of clothes in his closet. Speaking of old casting, Henry Winkler was 29 years old when Happy Days debuted. He was like nearing 40.
Oh my God.
So yeah, he was definitely on the egregious side of old casting. I read that maybe it was the Weinstein brothers again insisted on adding in a murder, like that wasn't in the original script, that it had they'd kind of gone too long without a murder. So to keep the pacing up, they threw in his murder.
Interesting.
I think there's one more character we haven't talked about, and that's Sydney's dad. If your wife was raped and murdered, would you leave your daughter home alone on the anniversary? Like, even if there wasn't a murder on the loose, which I don't think he knows about when he leaves. I feel like this is a time when your child needs emotional support.
I do like their cute exchange when he's like, I could have sworn I heard screaming, you know?
Yeah.
It was a cute little whatever. But then, yeah, I agree. And he's at the Hilton by the airport, which just made me think of Airport Hojo and one of my favorite movies ever, Drop Dead Gorgeous.
He definitely feels like sort of an afterthought. The way he bursts out of the closet, like still tied up, he sort of is. Like, they've all forgotten about him too, right?
And she goes, Dad, and she like touches her head like, oh shit,
like,
I forgot.
Right. Yeah. All right, let's talk about the scariest, most disturbing part. We've obviously already talked about Tatum's garage door death. Well, one of the parts that I found scary was the bathroom stall scene, just because I find public bathrooms scary.
Did you share on our account the whole killer waiting in the car thing?
Yeah.
I was like, how long is he in the stall? Because there's like girls talking shit in the bathroom before that, you know?
Yeah. So I guess the question is that really Ghostface? Is that Billy or Stu? Because what's the calculus here? He's just going to hang out in a bathroom and hope that Sydney walks in? How long has he been crouching on that toilet seat, right?
It's there so that we can think it's the police chief because he's got the same shoes.
The boots, yeah. I didn't fall for that.
No.
But there's also the possibility it's not him, that it's just some other guy dressed up and was like, I'm going to jump out at the first person I see, or the first person who's in here alone.
Very lucky that it was Sydney.
Yeah. I do find public restroom stalls and the idea that someone could be in there very creepy. And I was actually in our shopping center, which is just like a mall, and it's reasonably fancy and clean, and it's a nice mall. It's not like a decaying suburban mall. And I felt nervous walking into the bathroom stalls recently, I think because I just watched this. Another creepy moment, I think, is the I want to know who I'm looking at and 30-second delay. They realize that the camera has a 30-second delay. Those are real, oh shit moments. But we haven't talked about really the most iconic part of this movie, which is Casey's death.
And Steve.
And Steve. Afterthought. Yeah, Steve. People are like talking more about Casey than Steve.
Yeah, I feel so bad for him, especially because the guy tells her to turn off the light, and it sounds like he's really concerned for her and not himself.
I think it's interesting because in the beginning of the conversation, she's kind of being flirty and, chatting with a stranger. And she says she doesn't have a boyfriend. And then when she realizes she's in danger, she's like, I have a boyfriend. He's big and he plays football and he's going to kick the shit out of you. And I remember thinking, well, this is the lie. She's pretending she has a boyfriend to push this guy off. And then it's like, twist. He's there.
I loved that sweater she was wearing.
Yeah, very J. Crew.
Yeah.
I love that tonal shift that you get when it's just like all fun and games and then that I want to know who I'm looking at moment.
Would you keep answering the phone?
Well, because I've seen this movie and this helps me deal with my anxiety, I would be like, hang up, 911 immediately. Right. 000 in Australia. We don't say 911. PSA. Yeah, so Barrymore was going to be Sydney. Apparently, she's the one who suggested switching to Casey. And the quote I found from her was, in horror, my biggest pet peeve was that I always knew the main character was going to be slugging through at the end. What I wanted to do is to take that comfort zone away. So like Jaws and It Follows, both things we've covered in previous episodes, we have a red herring protagonist, which is done most famously in Psycho.
Who is on the poster.
Yes.
You think she's going to be a major part of the movie.
So that was shocking. Blew all of our collective 90s teenage minds.
Absolutely.
I think what is most horrific about this is the parents finding her. And I don't feel like as a teenager seeing this, comprehended how bad that is. And I guess this just goes to show I'm at the age where I identify more with the mom than the murdered teen. But finding your daughter strung up like that, it is truly, truly tragic.
Oh, God. I really always had a hard time with Casey's parents finding her. With it, she says, not my daughter, not my daughter. Well, and listening, I think that was the part that always had me really upset. There was a movie, I think it was Eye for an Eye, with Kiefer Sutherland and Sally Field, where she listens. She can hear her daughter being murdered. That, I think, was the most horrifying piece where she's saying mom and her mom is like, Casey, she can hear her. She knows she's nearby and alive.
You can't do anything. It's awful. I think this is one of the many examples of the way Scream really vacillates between fun, tropey, slasher, and then like serious tragedy. And I think it walks that line well and kind of subverts the gleeful way we almost view gruesome deaths of teenagers and slashers. And Casey's death deviates from that by acknowledging her humanity, right? Do you have any questions, unanswered questions?
I mean, I guess I'm sort of like, yeah, I don't understand. And I know they get to some of it in later movies, but I really don't understand why some of these casualties occurred. Not all of them tie into the narrative that I remember. And I did actually decide to continue on, and I watched up to Scream 3, I think.
Okay. They're not familiar in my mind. I haven't watched them in any time recently. Which one is the one where they're making the movie? Is that Scream 3? Which one's the one with Parker Posey?
That's
Is it
Scream
3?
3.
I really like that one.
Yeah.
Because I love her. Yeah.
I love her too. Yeah, I think that's 3 because I watched them both back to back, so I might be confusing them. Yeah, they're making the movie because in Scream 2, there's already a movie out called Stab.
Okay.
And Jada Pinkett Smith dies in the first scene.
Do you think that Stu and Billy would have gotten away with it?
Yeah.
I kind of think no. Well, I guess it depends on how good the medical examiner is. Because, like, wouldn't they have noticed that Sydney's dad, this framed killer, had been bound and had duct tape on his mouth? I feel like a good Emmy would notice that.
I guess, but I mean, as we were just saying, maybe they thought Maureen was raped when she wasn't,
Yes, and maybe they're shitty at this.
Knowing small town police officers are not usually dealing with murder.
Yeah. Do you think horror movies can turn people into killers?
No.
No. Because I would be.
Yeah. No.
I do love the way they play with that trope. Movies don't create psychos.
Movies make psychos more creative.
Yeah.
Don't blame the movies, Sid.
It's not going to trigger anything that wasn't already there inside of you. Now, having said that, I did find a list of killers who claimed to have been inspired by movies or thought they were in a movie, but I think they would have done something regardless.
Yeah, I agree.
So let's talk about some of the deeper horror simmering beneath the surface. Gail's bangs in later episodes.
Yeah.
Which one does she have the terrible bangs?
I think it's 3.
It's 3, yeah. Ooh. But to be serious, the media sensationalism around true crime and serial killers, which I suppose we're arguably contributing to by talking about. We're going to talk about this quite a bit in our upcoming Vanishing at the Cecil episode. I think Scream is exploring violence as a spectacle, and I think it's really telling that it ends with Gail talking about what happened on camera instead of Sydney, like, hugging her dad or something. Gail represents that double-edged sword of the media. It's important, and Gail's doing important work, trying to get an innocent man off death row, but it's also potentially exploitative.
Mm-hmm.
Domestic violence and people who murder their partners. Randy comments that there's always some bullshit reason to kill your girlfriend, and obviously this plays out in real life all the time. I found a 2024 UN press release that stated that 60% of all homicides where the victims are women were committed by an intimate partner or family member, and worldwide, one woman gets killed every 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
The fallibility of witness testimony and human memory. I think that's a big one that plays out in a lot of true crime. Like, Sydney is so sure that her mother's murderer is Cotton Weary, and she's wrong. Moral panics over things like horror movies, video games. We will be talking about this in Stranger Things Season 4 in relation to satanic panic and Dungeons and Dragons in a future episode. But yeah, moral panics over things like horror movies and video games. Anything else?
I mean, I think the thing of you never know what's going to trigger someone to have you as a target.
Which we discuss in episode 1 on Pen Pal, right? That you could just fall under the gaze of a psychopath and how scary that is. All right, I have a challenge for you. Add to Randy's rules. What horror rules did they miss? What do we need to learn? This is our survival section.
Oh my gosh, I don't know. You have some?
Got like 10.
Wow.
You were prepared.
Should
I go?
Yeah.
Charge your phone.
Call 911.
Call 911 right away. Don't wait on that. Don't listen to the serial killer who tells you not to call 911. Don't split up. Buddy system. Take the headshot. In Zombieland, they talk about the double tap. Don't assume the killer's really down. Check the bathroom. Check the back seat. Check the shower curtain. These are the places people sneak up on you. Stay out of the basement. Don't read out loud from the book in a different language. Thank you, the mummy. Run away from the house. Don't come back. Sydney comes back. There's at one point where she's like gotten away. Run and don't stop. There's this fantastic Nike ad. A serial killer sneaks up on this woman in the bathroom and she runs and she's still got her running shoes on. And then she keeps running and she keeps running and the serial killer's chasing her. And it's exactly like a parody of a horror movie. But then she keeps running. The serial killer starts to get tired. And at the end, he's hunched over and breathing heavily because he's not fit enough to catch her. And it's an ad for Nike, running stuff. And it's like my favorite ad of all time. Cardio.
Yeah, I love that part of Superbad. My husband quotes it all the time when he's like, "This is the fastest kid alive." Like,
okay. I love Superbad. And most importantly, what do you think my most important horror rule would be?
It's not call 911 or 000, whatever.
No,
What
don't
is it?
play with the Ouija board. Said it multiple times. Don't mess with that. All right. Do you have any criticism?
Yeah, okay. One of my pet peeves, which I don't think we've gotten to discuss yet. The phrase deja vu all over again drives me insane.
But isn't that why it's funny? Like they're being redundant
I
on purpose when they say that?
But I don't think everyone is. Like,
That's
I
true.
do know that that is the intention, but it is a, like, I think the word's like tautology or something, where it's just like, it's unnecessary redundancy. It doesn't add any value.
No.
And I saw something once upon a time that was like, millennials hate inefficiency. And I think that's why it just like irks me. It's like so inefficient. Anyway, okay, so that was one thing. I also didn't like, Casey, to the point you were just making, she sees her mom pull into the driveway or whatever, she stops running and he jumps through the window. Don't stop. Throw the phone, throw something, get their attention. The other thing I don't love, Nev Campbell doesn't do any stunts, clearly. She's very obviously got a stunt double, and I guess I've just been spoiled by Tom Holland. I don't know. These weren't insane stunts. I also hate, in the end, when he says, this is the part where the killer comes back for one final scare. And Billy does, and then she shoots him in the head and says, not in my movie. But it did happen in your movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess the final scare is not allowed to proceed because she takes him out immediately.
Okay, well, that's not what she said.
Okay. Good point. Good point. That's fair.
That's it.
I don't really have much. I actually went to IMDb and I looked up 1-star reviews to see if anyone would point out something that I like
Ooh,
half
fun.
agreed with. It's fun.
They
Yeah,
do
it
this
is
on
fun.
How Did This Get Made? They read
Yes.
they read the 5-star reviews. Go.
Read the 1-star reviews. There were some very funny takes. I do think representation is an issue here. It's all pretty rich white people.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something, just very common in movies of that era to not be thinking about diversity and including people from different perspectives and backgrounds.
They do actually touch on that in one of the sequels, at least.
I got to get watching these.
I think multiple sequels, they discuss that.
They make it, yeah.
Not enough Liev Schreiber?
Yeah, I thought he was in it more.
Yeah.
That was a surprise for me that he was just this tiny sliver
Baby
of
face.
Yeah. I must have been thinking of him in Scream 2 as more of a presence. Palette cleanser.
Okay, so I have a couple palette cleansers. One is super personal, but my niece got engaged yesterday. Congratulations, Hannah and Eli. I'm very, very happy. So I just wanted to shout that out. It's something that's making me happy this week or whatever.
Congratulations.
And then on TikTok, the algorithm really knows me. I have been fed up a handle called The Scenic Pickle, and it is a pickle in nature set to 90s grunge music. Like just over and over different scenes of a pickle hanging out in nature to awesome bangers from the 90s. So I gave it a follow and highly recommend.
Who comes up with these things?
I know. It's amazing.
My palette cleanser is just dogs. I was taking care of my in-laws and my brother-in-law's dogs in addition to my own. So we had like a crazy black lab and a chocolate lab puppy, and it was just absolutely chaotic at my house, barking, mysterious smells, tails knocking drinks off coffee tables, ferocious games of tug of war. I loved it. I want them all. I had to give them back. So we've had some feedback that some people love our recommendations and others think we go on for too long, which is fair. But we both just love hyping up our favorite movies, books, TV shows, podcasts, influencers. So we decided to shift recommendations to after homework from now on. If you want to turn off after, that's fine. But if you enjoy recommendations, keep listening. So our homework is The Vanishing at the Cecil, which was a response to Rosemary's Baby. And after that, we're planning to get to our Stranger Things episode, which will be focused just on season 4 before season 5 is released. There's actually a lot of connections to Scream. Billy and Steve in season 1 both climb through their girlfriend's windows, both explore moral panics, both reference a lot of classic horror. Scream is obviously mostly about Halloween, and Stranger Things, Nightmare on Elm Street, and both have bad Billies. So get watching. All right, recommendations. Caroline, what recommendations do you have?
Okay, so I wrote down, since we started watching the Buffy the Vampire movie, I don't remember why that came up in our conversation, but definitely recommend that. Also, The Craft, as I mentioned earlier, and then my favorite Drew Barrymore movie is Ever After.
Oh, I love that one.
I want to highly recommend. Also, other great 90s high school things where the people are way older. Cruel Intentions, where there's a great house party, Can't Hardly Wait. 10 Things I Hate About You, obviously, and She's All That. All the 90s beauties I wanted to shout out and recommend. That's kind of it that I had. Yeah.
I mentioned the podcast Faculty of Horror. I highly recommend it if you really want to dive deeply in a more academic way on horror. Scream is slasher satire, so you might want to try some other horror films that play with tropes. Cabin in the Woods is so good. Tucker and Dale versus Evil strays more into parody, but it's about that sort of backwoods horror you get in movies like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but they're just like nice people and they don't understand why these teenagers think they're trying to kill them. Have you seen it? It's so cute.
No.
We will watch it at some point. Obviously, Scary Movie, because it is a direct spoof of Scream. Scream is very articulate about film, and the writer is Kevin Williamson, so Dawson's Creek. Other 90s slashers, Halloween H2O, which I'm pretty sure has a bathroom stall scene that scared me as a teenager. I Know What You Did Last Summer, Scream sequels, Urban Legend, Disturbing Behavior, The Faculty, all those fun ones. Psycho, for another slasher with a villain with mommy issues and a main character who gets killed off early. If you're looking for something to read, there's a book called The Final Girls Support Club by Grady Hendrix. It refers to all these movies, and it's as if these murders actually happened, like there was a serial killer who did this thing, and these girls have survived, and now they're older and they're traumatized, and somebody starts picking them off, and it plays with those tropes in a really fun way. We might do it at some point. And of course, Party of Five for Neve Campbell. And Mean Girls, because Gail Weathers is definitely a mean girl.
We have recommended Mean Girls so many times.
Always.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else?
Well, I was thinking Parks and Rec, Henry Winkler, and Dr. Saperstein, which we've recommended a bunch of times too. And Disturbing Behavior, I was thinking of that line that I love. What is that? Meet the musical little creatures that live among the flowers or whatever. The line that she keeps repeating over and over again. It's so good.
I'll have to watch it again so I can find out. Okay, thanks for listening. Please do all the things podcasters ask you to do, like and subscribe, follow us on Instagram or Facebook or Threads. You can email us at drawntodarknesspod@gmail.com, write a review, and most importantly, please tell a like-minded friend about us. Word of mouth is the best advertisement. If, like Shirley Jackson, you delight in what you fear, join us in 2 weeks here at Drawn to Darkness. Special shout out to Nancy Azzano, who painted our cover art. You can find her on Instagram at Nancy Azzano, and to Harry Kidd for our intro and outro music. You can find him on Instagram at Harry J. Kidd and on Spotify.